Well, what really struck me in a conference I went to in my later life, I was 61, in St. Andrews, on the theology of the Epistle to the Hebrews. A very dynamic meeting with a lot of fearsome theologians and biblical studies people. Like, if I remember, I think John Webster is one of them, and Richard Bauckham were both there, and they were at it hammer and tongs. And I was searching, hadn't studied much of Greek or Hebrew, but I had really worked at the Epistle to the Hebrews. And one of the presenters, it was a nice small conference, maybe a couple of hundred people at most. One of the presenters said to me, I gave a presentation, and pointed out that the dialogue between the Father and the Son, the Epistle to the Hebrews, is 95% taken from the Psalms. Well, that hit me like a ton of bricks. It was just one of those, what are you doing reading second-hand interpretations of what I learned from? That was the question that occurred to me. So instantly, I went away and started looking at the Hebrew directly, and it was really hard. There's no question about that. You get a piece of Hebrew and you turn it upside down, you can't figure out which way to start reading it. And it was hard to find. The technology was difficult. My son-in-law from Cambridge told me to get Lambden, to get Brown Driver Briggs, and to start doing 15 minutes a day. Fast forward to 2010, and I had gone through all the Psalms at least once in Hebrew, using a diagramming tool, which allowed me to put individual words on paper and see how they related to each other within the poetry. And through this, I gained an appreciation for patterns of word repetition within the Psalms. Obviously, I'd read all about parallelism because that's the first thing anybody talks about ever since Loth wrote his stuff. There are frequently times when verbal repetition will make things clearer than thinking about the parallelism. But in 2010, I went to another conference in Oxford this time, entirely on the Psalms, hosted by Susan Gillingham. And there I discovered the music behind the accents. David Mitchell performed with choristers some of that amazing reconstruction of the music by Suzanne Haïk-Vantoura. And I went back, and in the next 2 to 3 years, I began to study that seriously. And being a programmer and discovering that there was such a thing as music XML, extended markup language, I could see that I could write a program that would read the text and produce a musical score, which is what I did. And with that program, together with a music program on the computer and the XML or the Unicode from Tanakh.us, the Leningrad Codex, I was able to automate 6,000 pages of music in Hebrew with a transcription. Now, that was a fun journey. And I did that, finished it in 2013, 2014. and then decided I really should look at the whole Bible, and just began in the fall of 2014 to plug at one chapter after another until more than one was done. Well, there are a number of places where you've got a duplication of text and you can compare directly. For example, toward the end of 2 Samuel, Psalm 18 occurs in its entirety. There's another aspect to the music that I pointed out and James McGrath picked up on, and that is that where the music is similar, there may well be a deliberate imitation of a previous text. And the best example I can give you is the opening verse of Genesis and the opening verse of Job. They both have the same musical shape. One of them is very serious, and the other is an amusing imitation of it. Yeah, it's just fascinating. That's the first example I put in the book I wrote on the music, The Song in the Night. There's 157, now 156 chapters left, because I just finished one while we were waiting. And that is, that's getting down to the final laps in this marathon, which has been going on since 2006, when I took 3 months to translate Psalm 1.